What's going on, beautiful people of YouTube? I'm sure you know there's a new Nosphere EP out. It's called Frigid Torture. It's out on Cyclops Recordings, which is Subtronics' label, so that's huge. Today I'm gonna be breaking down this track for you.
Bad man thing.
Just a quick reminder, if you want to get this project file and all of the samples and these stems, you can download it from my Patreon. So if you're not a patron, consider subscribing. I have a ton of free content, recs, samples, unreleased music, pre-released music, presets, project files, everything you can learn from, basically. Okay, so this track is called Frigid Silence with GemCamp. A little backstory. Me and GemCamp are longtime friends, dating back to like 2017. We've been a part of the Hungarian bass music scene together for quite a while now, DJing and producing together kind of as friends. At this moment, they are leaning towards the bass house, bassline, 128-ish kind of vibes. I think this is our best one yet. Let's dive into the synths and just the basics of how a collab is formed. I have the project file that I got, the original, opened up right now. So let's just check it out and let's see if it's any different to the end result. I always wanted to express my love for that kind of genre and just reese basses in general. So when I first heard this, I was like, this is the perfect track for a reese bass track. Let's jump back to the project. First thing first, let's talk about the drums. In the drums section, I didn't change a lot except a few things, honestly. I think the most important thing is the kick drum. So I changed the kick drum to be something shorter because the original one was just way too long. Just something short and snappy, no effects except cutting the high end and just giving it some transients. But without effects, it sounds like this. Nothing extra, you know, just the basics. Hip hop shaker. I usually use high-end noise like that to elevate the kick from the mix. It really helps, but you have to be careful because if it's a long sample like this one, you know, you don't want it to mask the kick drum. So -6 is perfectly fine for this. The main thing here is that I like to have a little fade on my cymbals, just a tiny bit so the kick transients can peek through and the snare transients can peek through. I put Boraska's sidechainer. I used the 2.2 version at the time. You can use the newest one. I put it on the hi-hats group and the aim and break group. I wanted the main drums to be the focus and I didn't want any clashing. I just wanted it to be crystal clean. The other thing is, I changed the snare drum because they had a lot of layers and the main layer wasn't too good in my opinion. I tried to use their stuff as well, but I just ended up switching out the snare to something that I really enjoy having in my production. I use this in Termite. I use this in a lot of tracks. I think a lot of remixes primarily. But yeah, this mezzo snare, insane. Boosted a little bit in the fundamental range, but nothing too crazy. So I'm just going to show you a couple of the layers here. Stuff like that. What happened to my voice? Goddamn. Hello, this is Nosphere, and now you're watching production with a bold guy. Yeah, so bases wise, this is where it gets really interesting in my opinion, because we have the good old reese bass. But first, let's check out these calls, because the call and response is kind of like two basses, bow, bow, and then reese bass section for 3.5 bars, then bow, bow, and then rinse repeat. The bass sound is, I believe the only thing I did here was cut lows, add reverb, then layering some elements, nothing too crazy, just fattening it up without any parallel effects, just something that plays the same thing but a different synth. Extremely heavy bass sound. That's about it for the first one. On the drop, we have 10% OTT, a reverb that comes in and out sometimes, especially at the ends. On the whole group that has the sidechain, we have a kilohertz ring mod trick, which is just basically separating the lows from the highs. So there's this EQ3, which separates the lows from the highs, and basically the lows are routed into the sidechain input of the ring mod. So basically the reese's low end, anything below 150 hertz, is affecting the highs, and it kind of makes it raspy and kind of gritty, if that makes sense. let's get down to business. Let's check out those nasty respaces. The fundamentals of a respace is just phase cancellation. Just imagine this. This is your speaker. Every speaker has a round circle thing. That circle thing is a membrane. It's controlled with a magnet, and the magnet pushes it outside or inwards. There's a thing called zero crossing, which is the middle. That's the resting position of the membrane. And when the sine wave goes up, the membrane goes outwards. When the sine wave goes below the zero crossing, it goes inward. And so basically, if you have a stereo signal that would go up on the left ear and down on the right ear, when you sub it to mono, they cancel each other out. So it's going to be silence if they are in the same loudness, of course. But that can happen spectrally as well. So it doesn't have to be just plain volume wise. It can be spectrally. So one side of the spectrum, for example, the highs are phased and the lows aren't. A respace is just that. So we have a unison of 2 in here in serum on a basic saw wave, and in global I turn down width, so the end result is mono. Output of the plugin is mono. Our respace is going to be happening because of phase cancellation, because obviously you know what unison is. It's basically a slightly higher and lower pitched version of the MIDI that you press. I use a little bit of distortion as well, so you know it's a little thicker by default, but basically it sounds like this. So the reason behind the respace getting kind of a faster wobble effect when it's higher pitched, that's because the higher the pitch, the smaller the wavelength, the smaller the cycle becomes. If you think about it this way, if I enable sync, for example, you can hear a higher pitched sound if I play it. That's because we repeat the waveform a lot. So for example, this is 1 cycle. This is the equivalent of an octave higher. So basically, the more cycles you have, the faster the kind of amplitude LFO thing will be. I have a basic respace here, and I'm just going to beef it up with the effects. I'm going to turn on everything one by one, just so you can understand what's happening. I'm gonna enable multiband dynamics and G-clip because these are just 2 basic effects that just make everything louder. Basic reese. How do you beef up a respace? Pretty simple. You need noise, distortion, EQing, and compression. I'm gonna enable these 3 compressors. Sounds cooler already. I'm gonna enable wide white noise. Now that's a little bit too noisy for now, but instead of just decreasing the amount, let's just distort them together and see where it takes us. I like lead distortion on amp a lot because it elevates the second harmonic on the sub bass, which is usually an octave and 7 semitones above the bass frequency of the sub. For a respace, in this particular scenario, it's pretty good. Then I use pedal distortion overdrive. Then I use a kilohertz filter to give it some movement. I'm automating a notch filter. Usually bandpass filters and notch filters are your best friend if you're talking about respaces, so keep that in mind. Then I'm going to use EQ8 to carve out the nasty mid-range. Beautiful. Then I'm using Saturn II to give it some warmth and tape distortion. Not necessary, but I just wanted to use it because I didn't use it in ages. Then I just use a standard soft sine saturator. And that's basically the whole rack. The other things in here are just specific to this project. It just creates movement. And then I knew that I want the whole track to be respaces. So when I had this, I knew I want something, you know, filtered in the beginning and then just full on respace power. So what I did was duplicate the whole thing and just changed the parameters of some areas. For example, I changed the wavetable. So simple wavetables that resemble a sine wave or a square wave or a saw wave work because they have a low fundamental frequency, which we absolutely need to get the obvious fluttering or wobbling phase cancellation going on. So the second iteration of the respace sounds like this. I use a lot of filters, as I mentioned. I use 2 notch filters in this case. And you can see I have a lot of automations on the third one, but it's basically the same thing except it's again a different wavetable. But the processing makes it sound somewhat similar. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, that funky bassline-ish bassline as in the genre. This little thing right here. I like this a lot. It's so simple though. It's one G clip, gain maxed out, clip brought back a little bit. And the only thing that I'm doing here is one clean sine wave, random all the way down so it sounds the same always. And I just have LFO1 on the level, so I kind of made a fake transient for the sine wave. What this transient will do is it's squashed against the G clip so much that this is the regular loudness, and everything that is above this middle line, everything that is above, so basically the peak, is distorted. So it's basically like a fake tom that doesn't have a release. On the second drop, everything is the exact same, except some of the drums are in different places and there are reversed melodies. For example, this thing plays a reversed melody. And the reese bass is a little more interesting. And yeah, that's about it, I believe. Oh yeah, this is not that interesting, but I switched out the main bass that the guys made with some of my Vital presets. Trap Disto Wub Wub 2. Here as well, shameless plug, advertisement coming up. Get this pack right here. Yay. Also, if you want to change the wobble speed, you don't necessarily have to increase the pitch. You can also increase the unison, because that creates a bigger distance between the two pitches that you have, and that will create a faster wobble. So as you can see, I automated the detune, which controls what I said, and it sounds like this. By default, it would have sounded like this. So that's it. Link is down in the description. If you like this video, like, subscribe, ring notification, anything you want basically. If you dislike it, tell me why. And also don't forget to follow GemCamp. I'm gonna link all their socials down in the description as well. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to check out my website for a lot of high quality Serum and Vital presets and drum samples. You can also support me on Patreon, where I upload bass music specific tutorial content every single month. Peace.